Wetlands, 2006. It's a real pleasure to be here with you this evening at the short, surreal environmental dinner. The proceeds from this dinner will be used by Oak Ridge's Moraine Land Trust and the Conservation Foundation of Greater Toronto. Together, these two organizations have protected thousands of acres of land. They are part of the growing movement, growing in awareness, growing in effectiveness, growing in advocacy power, propelled forward by people who realize that big oak trees grow from little acorns and cannot grow without little acorns, and that all trees, and indeed all life on dry land, which would include us language wielding bipeds, needs soil and water and clean air and therefore careful and informed consideration. Countless hours of thought and volunteer work have gone into these organizations. Everyone here applauds this work and is proud to have been part of it. If organizations like this succeed in their work, you'll breathe easier in so many more ways than one. You'll feel you've done something to help in a much larger struggle, the struggle against global warming and the huge amount of devastation it will bring and is already bringing. You'll sleep better at night, partly, let's hope, because you won't be coughing so much. I'm not a politician, so you may wonder that I'm making a speech on what has already become a political hot potato. Hot in so many ways. According to those who measure things, including NASA, Earth is hotter now than it has been for a millennia. If it gets very much hotter, we'll soon be beyond the point of no return. Oh, well, that Margaret, they sometimes say. She's just a fiction writer. Yes, I am a fiction writer, and that gives me a big advantage in the truth or fiction arena. Unlike some politicians, I do know the difference between the two. Here's a bit of a piece I wrote from Granta last year, nonfiction this time. The subject was the melting Arctic ice, a situation I've seen for myself. You could write a science fiction novel about it, I said, except that it wouldn't be science fiction. You could call it ice melt. Suddenly, there are no more small organisms, thus, no fish up there, thus, no seals. That wouldn't affect the average urban condo dweller much. The rising water levels from, say, the melting of the Greenland and Antarctic ice caps would get attention. No more Long Island or Florida, no more Bangladesh, and quite a few islands would disappear. But people could just migrate, couldn't they? Still no huge cause for alarm unless you own a lot of shorefront real estate. But wait, there's ice under the earth, as well as on top of the sea. It's the permafrost under the tundra. There's a lot of it and a lot of tundra as well. Once the permafrost starts to melt, the pea on the tundra, thousands of years of organic matter, will start to break down, releasing huge quantities of methane gas. Up goes the air temperature, down goes the oxygen ratio. Then how long will it take before all choke and boil to death? People sometimes tell me I can be a little harsh. Now, Margaret, they say, isn't that a little harsh? As if by saying that a bare naked emperor has in fact got no clothes on, I trampled a kitten or something. So harsh to wake sleepwalkers from their trance. Everyone would much rather be told that things are fine, the world is safe, we're all nice people, and nothing is anyone's fault. Above all, that we can keep doing exactly whatever we like without thinking any thought or changing our so called lifestyle in the least, and there would be no bad consequences. I'd like to be told that too. Trouble is, it is not true. So maybe it's time to be a little harsh. The situation we find ourselves in cannot be dealt with through anything less than plain speaking. For a long time now, I've had a habit of clipping things out of newspapers and magazines or downloading them from the internet. When I was writing my 2003 novel Oryx and Crake, set in the not so distant future when global warming has raised sea levels so that New York is underwater and there isn't any red-leaved autumn in New England because the climate there is semi-tropical. I built up a little stash of articles to corroborate such details in case anyone might accuse me of hallucinating. But then, just a few years ago, I was getting these pieces from science oriented magazines or from the science pages of newspapers. You had to search for this stuff. But in the past year, I hadn't been able to keep up. There's been a deluge. The bad news has moved up from the science pages to the covers of magazines like Newsweek, which in October carried a full spread on global warming. Last chance for fish, proclaimed one insert. Another piece was on frogs, another on coral, another on rainforest damage. In the first presidential campaign that George Bush sort of maybe won, his opponent Al Gore was derided for his green views. Not anymore. Along with the bad news, there's some good news. Reclamation projects that have succeeded, new technologies that will help us live greener lives. It's all happening very, very fast. For instance, we know that albatross is in trouble due to human fishing methods. We even know how to save it. It wouldn't even cost that much. We just need the money. The trouble with raising money for conservation, including birds and animals, is that people have trouble seeing the connection between human beings and the rest of the world. If you grow up behind plate glass windows, if all your food comes from the supermarket, if you think water is generated by the faucet, you're going to have some trouble putting two and two together until that is, New Orleans floods on your own lights go out and you die because contaminated spinach or the E. coli in your town supply. Of all charitable giving, only the 3% goes to animal related causes, and of that 3%, half of it goes to human pets, such as dogs and cats. We prefer to give it to poor people or to hospitals with heart and kidney foundations, but as you all know, degrade the environment, degrade it worldwide, as is now happening, and you'll get more poor people than you can possibly ever deal with. We're there already, come to think of it, because all human wealth is in the end based on the earth. As someone recently quipped, the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. Wreck the earth and you're wrecking yourself, and then it won't matter how much money you've been given to the hearts and the kidneys because nobody will have hearts and kidneys anyway. I myself didn't grow up behind the plate glass windows. As a child, I led the kind of double existence that I used to be more typical of Canadians, part time in the boreal forest, part time in cities. In the forest, we always had a garden because that was the only way we could get fresh greens, by growing them. And we got fresh fish by catching them. So I was pretty conscious about where food came from because of my belief that we're living in decisive times and the small choices do make a difference. I recently started writing a set of green protocols to be used by my own home and my own office. In order to do that, I had to take stock, yet once more, of how I was in fact living. It's amazing where such an examination will lead you. In our house, we had already done quite a few things: the low energy car, the list of permissible fish we carry around with us and haul out in the restaurants and at the fish store, the elimination of air conditioning from our home, the installation of a couple of solar panels, the discarding of evil cleaning products, the low energy, low water washing machine, the recycling, the reusing, the supporting of forest stewardship paper for our books. But as we took stock, we realized there was so much more to be done. Conscious green living is an exacting as some relentless religious program. There's a sort of catechism that goes along with it and an exhaustive list of sins. Just try avoiding paper towels in the washrooms or those hopelessly wasteful hot air hand dryers that don't work anyway. It can be done. You carry a handkerchief, you use that, you discover it week later is balled up in the mildewy corner of your purse, but it's hard. You do get the hang of it after a while, though, like almost everything else. It's a habit. Trouble is, people who are making this difficult attempt feel they're going it alone. They aren't getting much official help, certainly not from our federal government. Private gains are being cancelled out by public losses. If an asteroid were sweeping towards the Earth, threatening a massive impact with huge climate altering clouds of dust, fires, floods, and the whole terrifying ball of cataclysmic facts, and if we knew how to stop it and had the power to stop it, you'd think we're taking the necessary steps. But what's coming towards us now is going to have many of the same dismal effects. What exactly will it take to get a little real action out of our so called leaders who are behaving increasingly like the proverbial ostriches with their proverbial heads in the tar sands? When is Mr. Harper going to realize that people no longer want to listen to him tut-tutting about previous liberal hypocrisy and inaction on environmental issues, and that's not quite so stupid as he thinks, and we therefore know that his tutting is in fact not going to cover up his own hypocrisy and inaction? Things are speeding up, Mr. Harper. Then is not now. And the difference is now it's you in power, not the liberals. The nothing that is being done is your nothing. It's unfair to say you're doing nothing. There's a Clean Air Act. That's at least something that's not really big something. However, if you wave it around, it might buy you some time. You're keeping one of the promises at any rate, your promise to build a firewall around Alberta. But people in Alberta are not so stupid either. They're beginning to realize that a hotter planet is going to mean droughts and water shortages, even for them. A lot of frizzled up cattle, a big imbalance between the water that people need and supply of water available to them. What happens when the place burns from the inside of the firewall, not from the outside? How now, brown cow? Canada has long been thought of as a fairly green place, but we've been resting on our laurels, unfortunately, because Canada is not meeting its greenhouse gases control goals set under the Kyoto Accord. It's promising to come up with some better form of legislation sometime, but it's not reassuring that the present government doesn't seem to grasp the connection between the air quality and climate change. The Clean Air Act will be useless if the atmosphere continues to heat up. What part of hotter planet means worse air, means more air conditioning, means hotter planet, means worse air, don't they get? It's a message that voters increasingly do get. But there's the message, and then there's how people react to the message. If it's all doom and gloom with no hope in sight, folks turn off because they feel there's nothing they can do. Or else they get cynical and greedy. If you're all going down the plug hole, they reason why not grab what you can and enjoy yourself in the meantime. It's instructive to read about Black Death during its first murderous onslaughts when people thought the world was coming to an end. Reactions varied. Some ran for safety, leaving cities where the plague was raging, fleeing for the countryside or for other cities, not realizing they were in fact bearing the plague along with them and infecting others. Some took to blaming. The plague was a result of witches or lepers or Jews poisoning the wells, or it was sent by God as a punishment for men's sins. That impulse is still with us. As witness some of the right wing reaction to the onset of AIDS and to the flooding in New Orleans, man's sinfulness and God's retribution were pinned onto both, like a well used tail to a shop worn donkey. During the Black Death, some took to flagellating themselves. Some stayed in place and tried to care for the victims with usually fatal results to themselves. Some went on the rampage, looting and raping and rioting as civil disorder broke down. Some sequestered themselves in castles, hoping the plague would not come in. Some carried on with their ordinary lives as best as they could, but nobody said, "It's not happening." Nobody will be able to say that about global warming and environmental catastrophe soon either. Hardly anyone is saying it now. There's an upside to everything, by the way. After the plague had killed a third of Europe's population, workers' wages rose. Also, the neglected fields grew up into forests, ushering in, some say, the Little Ice Age, since bare fields reflect more heat back into the atmospheres than forests do. The Black Death, like the neutral zone between the North and South Korea, was great for wildlife. Look on the bright side. Another side effect was the fallout in the world of art. The Black Death ushered in those skull and hourglass tombstones with the memento mori inscriptions and the painting of the Dance of Death, in which the citizens of all social levels were shown being led in the dance by Death himself. In a world of mass epidemic or catastrophe, having lots of money and a private medical plan is not going to do you any good. The difference between us and the plague sufferers is that we have at least some idea of how to avoid the approaching fate. It's not lack of knowledge on our part, it's lack of political will. It's all really well to say the individual consumer choices are all we're making the difference, that government should stay out of it. If you want to buy a polluting leaf blower, if you want to drive a honking big city tank, that's up to you. And if, on the other hand, you're conscientious and you make the right environmental choices and you pay more for them, as often will, that's your choice too. But that's penalizing those who make the right environmental choices and letting others off the hook. The air, the earth, and the water are common good and should be commonly protected. All will benefit if they are, all will suffer if they're not. Legislation is needed to level this particular playing field. We're waiting for it, Mr. Harper. If we wait too long, it will be too late. End of story. This is about what I can expect to hear the word alarmist. But alarmist is good when the building's on fire. You sound the alarm, then hope that someone will help to put it out. In that sense, everyone in this room is an alarmist. We've seen the flames. I'll end with an old story. King Midas was granted a wish, but he didn't think it through. He wished merely for wealth as it was then measured. He wished that everything he touched might turn gold. And everything did turn to gold, including any food he tried to eat and any water he tried to drink. He starved to death. There are more kinds of wealth than money. Instead of turning everything on earth into gold, we have the chance to turn gold back into those four elements, the things that are needed for life: good water, fine air, healthy soil, clean energy. I hope we will all avail ourselves of that chance while we still can.